I have an important message for a select few. That's not all of you. This is for a select few of you guys that are listening or watching this. It's for trade business owners that have been around for a while. They understand the frustrations of marketing and being in control or not being in control. Guys, it's 2021 and many of you are marketing yourselves like it's the year 2000. Off the back of a global pandemic, we've seen huge shifts in the market with people turning to service providers they know, like, and trust. There's never been a better time to establish the tools and frameworks in your business to take advantage of these things. These things that will serve you not only now, but serve the business ongoing. Over at Tradie Web Guys, we've recently launched the Elevation Program. It equips businesses with the tools and the programs required to successfully market themselves. It gives you tools to re-engage with your past and present clients whilst nurturing potential clients. It creates assets in your company's name with no proprietary licenses. You own these things 100%. It gives your business a huge head start on the search engines with advanced SEO, and it collates all of the programs and all the services you need into one neat little bundle, including things like web development, website management, email marketing, SEO, Google Ads, loads of different softwares, strategy, support, and a bunch of other things. After going through this program, you'll have all the tools you need to market your business ongoing. You'll have a huge head start in your marketing, and you'll also have a CRM so you can continue to build your database whilst engaging your current customers and re-engaging those customers that you've essentially forgotten about. Marketing tools that you need, and they'll all be in your control. You don't owe anyone anything. You'll be able to dial it up and down essentially as you see fit. So why is this an important time to talk about this? Guys, it's important to know a lot about a little and a little about a lot. Meaning, you want to be in control. You want to know enough to be dangerous. I'm not trying to give you more work here. Essentially, we'll set everything up for you, teach you the basics, and then it's all yours. It's complete transparency. You'll never grow a business past a certain point without marketing. Word of mouth will only ever get you so far. We've spoken about it on the podcast a load of times. At some stage, you need to invest in these things. This is the simplest and most affordable way to do it. For more information, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/elevation, fill in the form, and let's make 2021 the year that you took control. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello there, listeners and viewers. Welcome back to the Site Chat podcast. My name is Matt and I'm your host today, and you are joined by the lovely Jen Pivotal from pivotal.com.au. Jen, welcome back.
Thank you. Hello. This
is your repeat appearance on the show. We recently had a conversation titled Adapting Your Business to Accommodate for Physical and Mental Health Conditions. And in that conversation, we were really talking about some of those changes that business owners would be experiencing in the situation where, for one reason or another, either themselves or one of their team members have experienced physical injury or a mental health condition that has one way or another affected the business. Very common conversations lately, and very common, especially in the midst of, or I suppose here in Australia, we're lucky to say in the wake of, a global pandemic. But I know that's certainly not the case for a lot of our overseas listeners and viewers, especially in North America. I know they're right in the thick of it over there, so we feel for you guys. Anyway, if you didn't get a chance to hear that conversation, do go back and check it out. This conversation today is going to be a little bit more about the practical applications on how you can transition your business when you are forced off the tools. I'm guessing, Jen, we could probably touch on part of that conversation being when perhaps some of your staff members are, physically unable to do roles and responsibilities that they might have previously done due to an injury, either physical or mentally. I've actually worked in a business where that has been the case. I suppose it was more of a mental injury, that a family death, and the guy just couldn't cope anymore with what they were doing, and they sort of had to redesign a whole bunch of roles and responsibilities to accommodate that. And to their credit, they really did a good job of it. I suppose luckily for them, they were quite a well-established business with quite a large staff base, and they kind of had the resource to be able to, reshuffle, I suppose, some of those responsibilities and, reorganise a few things, which worked really well in the favour of that gentleman. But I suppose from a smaller business point of view, that's certainly not going to be as common play. So
and
anyway.
I think, and really great for those businesses where there are managerial, like there are levels and people can actually step up and, be flexible and so on. What we deal with are the business owners though. And often there's not that ability just to have somebody who can pick up the roles and responsibilities of the business owner, which is usually that high-end stuff. It's the stuff that really glues the business together and make sure that they keep getting the business in the door and that the referrals keep coming.
Sure.
So really it stops with the business owner, like whether it's a large company or a one-man band. The idea primarily when somebody has a physical or other medical condition is that what I often hear people say is, I just can't be on the tools anymore, or I can't be on the tools the way I used to. And I say, well, so what do you want? What's your outcome? They say, well, I need to find myself a role in my business where I am either fully off the tools or I have a percentage of time that I'm on the tools, but only specific tasks I can do. But ultimately what I hear people say is, I just want to find a balance. I want to find a balance that includes my work, my personal life, but also there's this third thing that crops up for people who are dealing with a medical situation, is that they need to find time to fit in their treatment. They need to find time to stay fit and healthy and, do that stuff that requires us to create a routine, that needs us to go swimming 3 times a week or to Pilates every second day, or going for a walk with the dog routinely, because that is what keeps them physically fit and healthy and maintain their flexibility and mobility. But mentally, it's just so important. That might even include doing some meditation.
Sure.
Just to help you find your calm if you're starting to feel really anxious.
It's funny, isn't it? Like that. This is a conversation I had with a staff member only yesterday, talking about, do you train? Because do you go to a gym? Do you get out and about? Because I think so often, people, because she was telling me she's had some anxiety issues over the years and things like that. And in my experience, the best way to get over any sort of problem that I'm having in my head is just go and punch it out in the gym and really and stay fit. And I think so many people, have these, mental health issues because they live this sedentary lifestyle and they're so stuck behind a computer and they're not out doing what we were designed to do. They're not out, climbing trees. And the advantages of being physical is just so you can't really quantify it, I'm sure there is. I'm not even sure there's a way to quantify it.
Oh, God. I mean, it's so multifaceted. Like, it helps in so many ways. But you think about those people who used to be able to go to the gym and bash it out and, run 10Ks, and now all of a sudden they can't. And so all of a sudden, not only is their outlet gone,
Sure.
but because they actually need something to make sure they don't have muscle wastage or to clear the head or whatever, they have to find a new way of doing that.
Sure.
Right? So not only do they have to find a new system and way to operate within their business and to modify their role, not only do they have to find a new way of adapting to their personal lives and their personal finances and stuff, but then they've got to find an outlet that they can physically cope with
and do.
And actually do, like find time to fit it in amongst everything else. So one of the things that we do and find that we're doing repeatedly is because it's just urgent, is trying to help people to create a routine around their new normal.
Yeah.
Right? And often they need accountability to help them to do it and stick to it.
Yeah.
So, my suggestion to people is, firstly, work out what that routine looks like. What's the treatment requirements that you need? Do you need to see a psychologist once a fortnight? Do you need to, go to an exercise physiologist to create an exercise program? Do you need to have physio treatment or whatever it is? Include that in your routine and then look at, well, what is it that helps me maintain my flexibility and mobility, what helps me maintain my mindset and my mental health, and incorporate it, and then find somebody to go, rightio. Like I've got a friend who every morning at 7 a.m. sends me a link that says, Jenna, don't forget to do your yoga. I do this yoga, which is this free YouTube, amazing yoga person in the States, 20, 30 minutes free, and she's brilliant. So I just go out to a room and I do that, and that just sets me off for the day. But if I didn't have that person keeping me accountable with a text message in the morning, I wouldn't do it. Now I'm in the habit of doing it, so I don't need her. But we all need somebody to fly the flag for us, don't we?
There's a lot to be said for accountability. We've done podcasts on this over the years, and I know certainly in my own life I've got accountability partners for multiple different things, including business coaches and colleagues we bounce things off. And even now, more recently, I've just only a couple of weeks back, I bought a program for my whole team, for an accountability program that's essentially a chat bot, believe it or not, which synchronizes with our Google Chat, which is the chat channel that we use, and it keeps people accountable to daily goals and deliverables. And it's brilliant. It's really funny because you can give people kudos and you can give them high fives and all this kind of cool stuff, and the team love it.
That's so good. Can you include that in the show notes?
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I'll definitely try and.
Thanks. Just a link would be good.
It's really fun. I mean, I suppose that's one of the big things, isn't it? Like when you're so used to doing something, or you're a high achiever in some sort of field, whether it's academia, whether it's business, whether it's sport. You see it a lot in sport. I mean, I could rattle off the top of my head dozens of situations where you've got rugby league stars, or people that are to be a rugby league star who have all of a sudden been in a bad tackle or their neck's buggered and they can never play football again. Coming to grips with that reality is such an overwhelming and potentially and very often debilitating realization. I'm never going to be able to do this again, and it's my dream, or whatever it might be. You just see that alone cripples so many people, especially young kids, and you just think if you could just get some perspective on the reality and the bigger picture, I just feel sometimes people, and it's easy for me to say because I've never had it, but I mean, I'm sure, when you're looking from the outside into these situations, you just sometimes think part of this transition has just got to be accepting it and just saying, I've got to find something else. I have to go and, make myself useful elsewhere in some way or another. And I guess it's kind of the same with business, sure you've been forced out of doing what you used to do, pitching roofs or digging holes or whatever it might have been. But then you've really got to look at it through rose lenses to a degree, don't you? I mean, what else can you do? What else in your business? I mean, the beautiful thing is it's your business, and you've sort of got the ability to remove yourself from these parts. As I touched in the last episode, so much of what we do and so many of the conversations we have are about helping business owners, document the departments, the roles, the responsibilities, so they can remove themselves from certain areas. That might be the stuff they don't want to do, but in the instance that we're talking about, it might be documenting things that they may have to go and do because they can't do what they were doing. So much of those things the guys want to offload are the non-physical things. It's the office stuff, it's the HR, it's the accounting, it's the sales, it's the marketing, whatever. When maybe that is part of the stuff that they're going to have to move into. They can't physically swing the hammer anymore. That said, it's an amazing opportunity because this is something that they're in a position to they're luckily in a position to move themselves into because it's their business. But as you've really got to have all of those things, all of those roles and responsibilities defined in the things that you can't deliver on anymore. Otherwise, you're never going to get someone to be able to fill that gap.
Yeah, and that's really where our business mentoring services really work, in that what we do is in helping. So stage one basically is understanding where's the business at, what are the gaps, what do you need, what are your goals, how do they need to be modified to accommodate your medical situation. And then we identify where do you need to focus your priorities to get your business either up and running again or diverted towards a different focus if that's what we've identified is required. And then, because sometimes people just feel completely overwhelmed by the enormity of their situation, right? Like we've just said before, they're having to include all their rehab and treatment appointments. They're worrying about their financial situation, and they're having to do the business, right? So they're freaking out. They're feeling completely overwhelmed. So what we do is we just really help bring that all down into an easy to manage situation. And we then help them to prioritize the tasks at hand. What do you need to do first? What do you need to do next? If your role is going to change or increase to being more of a hands-off the tools sort of role, which is more quoting, going for tenders, managing staff, onboarding, communication with relationships with clients, all of that. What do you need to upskill in? It's generally around the marketing side or the networking side. And we actually work through upskilling them in a really simple way. Because we do it in Zoom, we can share screens. So I often will say to someone, radio, I don't know, do you have a business Facebook page? No, I don't. I hate Facebook. And then I'll just talk them through, well, what's the benefit of it and why do you actually need to have some sort of online presence? I mean, Matt, you know all of this. I don't need to go on about it. But just to say that while we look at all those core functions of the business, we provide a little bit of hand-holding just to help them get their head around what does that even mean for me and my business and how can I learn about it? Because, you know, like we said earlier on, what you don't know, you don't know. And sometimes all they need is for someone to say, you know, that Facebook does this, and having a website and sort of the Google Analytics, this is what that means. Now, I don't do that stuff for them. I would refer to people like your business, Matt, and say, look, go to the experts. But in essence, this is how it might help you. So sometimes they just need this holistic look at what their business needs to be more profitable so they can work smarter, not harder, because ultimately that's the aim, and to find solutions that are going to work for their situation, for them, not against them, and help them find balance. So that's what we do.
It sounds like it would be a pretty damn good exercise for every business owner to go through, to even treat it like you are going to be forced off the tools and how to build a business around it. You know, and to be fair, it's kind of, I think that's kind of what a lot of these, like a lot of programs allude to, whether or not you are actually wanting to step away from the business or not. Fundamentally, if you build a business that enables you to do so, then it's a pretty amazing business. And it puts you in a pretty well leveraged position there where you know, whether you're forced into that situation or not, you've built a business that facilitates it, you know.
And I guess, you know, more than anything, sometimes injury or illness or not, you actually just need to start thinking outside the box.
Totally.
And if you can have that accountability person, that business mentor, the rehabilitation counselling sort of approach, whatever it might be, find your person that can work with you, that can understand your concerns and your challenges and take you through that process with a bit of hand-holding to understand what your needs are to take you to get to the other side. Then I tell you what, it's a really good investment of your time. And if you're on income protection insurance and you've got an insurer that might be willing to pay for the service, then it doesn't cost you a thing. But if you're paying for it yourself, even so, I think it's a really good financial investment.
I think it's definitely a pretty solid advice to recommend to everyone watching this or listening to this, that they try and get these things out of line before they need it. Put these things into action now, because you never know what's going to happen. Like, you may get hit by a truck tomorrow, heaven forbid, or whatever, and all of a sudden, you know, you may need it, and you don't want to be in that situation where you're really scrounging.
In fact, do you want a case study? Just a really quick one. This one's really awesome. I got a client who, and this is what reminded me, he got hit by a truck, and the truck ran over his chest and shoulder sort of area. Anyway, it resulted in quite a few upper body limitations.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Anyway, he was a landscaper, right? So an injury like that is not ideal for a landscaping professional because there's lots of digging and, you know, vibratory sort of stuff. And so he came to me through his income protection insurer, and he came to me and he said, look, I'm going to have to close my business. There is no way that I can operate this business because I don't know how long I'm going to take to get better, if at all. So I said, well, hang on. Before you decide on closing your business, should we just look at your business and see what's possible? There might be a way that you can continue to operate this business without you actually having to do anything physical. So we looked at that, and we basically looked at his model, looked at whether he took on subcontractors. He was like, oh, I hate subcontractors. You know, they've always done me bad and so on. So we worked through how he could do that better. So he found 2 subcontractors that ended up being like awesome, one of whom was so good that after about 6 months, my client said, look, Jen, I'm actually thinking that I want to offer this guy a profit share of my business. So we worked out a strategy for him to basically offer a sort of a profit share type partnership arrangement, right? So it was great, it was win-win. So with this guy come on, he took on some more responsibility, they took on some more staff, and the business started ticking along. So then my client, who was doing all the quoting and stuff, but was starting to get itchy feet, was saying, look, I'd actually like to go off and do some study. He said, I've never studied, but I really want to go and learn how to...
Design.
It was actually sort of like business, what was it? A building surveyor, right?
Oh, okay.
Because in his role as a landscaper, he used to see people with swimming pools that would always need building inspections in order to get them across the line. So he went off and did this diploma in surveying and started up a business on the side, which allowed him just to go off and do a pool inspection. So as you can imagine, that's not physical. So then all of a sudden he had these two businesses. The one, the landscaping business that he was having increasingly less hands-on role in, that was actually doing really well, to this other business that he'd started. And he just started, like I just helped him to do a bit of marketing to help, be in front of his ideal customer base. That started doing well. And then the outcome was that he said, rightio, I'm actually really enjoying this pool inspection job way better. Meanwhile, his partner said, I'll buy you out. So he ended up selling his other business, had this other business that was way better for his physical limitations, and he was actually doing better in it. Wow. So the outcome was just extraordinary, but that was us really looking at all angles of business. And for him, it ended up being a bit of career transition. Sure. Because at one point he was thinking, do I need to go get a job? Yeah. But he said, I don't really want a job because I need the flexibility that being self-employed gives me. Anyway, so he found the ideal solution. That was great.
And again, that's the rose-coloured lens, isn't it, which he would have looked through if he didn't speak to you. So it definitely pays to have someone in your corner that you can bounce those things off. Yeah. This has been great. What do you reckon? Have we covered off on everything we wanted to?
Oh, Matt, I could talk about this all day.
Of course we could.
But look, I think that you've got the gist of it. Most importantly is just really balancing the fine line between what your body and your mind wanting to do it but can't, and how we can build that into creating an effective business plan where it can be profitable, feasible, where it has you working smarter, not harder, and at the end of the day that you can continue having a good balance in your life that doesn't compromise your health any further.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of the guys out there, although you never wish to be in a situation where you're not forced off the tools, but I think for the better part, like the case study you just spoke of, in a situation where that does become apparent, you're probably going to be forced into a situation which could potentially put you in a much better position anyway. Encourage you guys to go and look for that position before it becomes a reality, and, look at the bigger picture and really strategize, where you'd like it to go and where you could potentially see yourself within the business. Not necessarily if you are injured, but certainly, as a bigger picture, a bit of perspective, it will certainly, I believe, pay dividends.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, no one wants to be the plumber on the shovel 60 years old, right? So unless you
and if they can be, because for some reason their body's held out that long, like hats off to them. But,
sure.
The more I see, the less likely that's going to be the end result.
As you say, even entering into the 40s, when you're doing this for 20 odd years, your body does start to break down a bit. So you've really got to start thinking outside of the box and thinking a bit more long term with these sort of things, how you can remove yourself from, the guy digging the holes.
You bet. Good luck, everybody, with that. And here, if anybody just needs to even have a chat, like really, you don't need to feel that you're committed to having any sort of ongoing business support with us. But if you just feel like you want to suss out whether it might work for you, please feel free to get in touch.
Well, that's great. And thank you for that, Jen. And once again, guys, Jen is in the Facebook community. So if you do have any questions, or certainly when you see this podcast come through, if you want to ask Jen any questions in relation to that, things we may not have covered, or some of the experiences you might have had, or some questions you might have, then by all means, hit us up in the group. Jen, you're from Pivotal, pivotl.com.au, and your email is jen@. Guys, I'll put some links to that in the show notes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. See everybody. Thanks, Matt.
Ciao. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from this show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.